Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
Well, hello there and welcome along to our preview show of the second round of fixtures in the Allianz football and hurling leagues this weekend. The league rattling on at its quick-fire pace and lots to look forward to across hurling and football this weekend. We'll chat hurling with Michael Duignan very shortly, but first let's go to the weekend's football action and lots to look forward to there as well. Rory O'Neill joins me here in studio. Rory, how are you?
Good to be here and in good form, Cathal.
Good stuff. And joining us is Dessie Dolan as well. Dessie, how are you? Welcome back for another season.
Thank you very much. Really looking forward to it. Enjoying all the football at the minute. It's been excellent.
Yeah,
Club football's been amazing, rolling into the National League, so it's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great weekend of action in the opening round of the Allianz Football League. Dessie, just maybe to get your opinions first on this time of year from a player's point of view, but more recently you're involved as a manager with Westmeath. The weather's terrible. The pitches maybe hard to come by from a training point of view. And the matches, Dessie, week on week, how difficult is that from a management point of view this time of year?
It's an absolute nightmare logistically in every respect to what you're trying to do. You're trying to manage injuries, you're trying to manage pitches and get pitches available. Like if you think of the rain that's after falling and you're looking to get on a pitch, like it's very, very difficult. And then you're trying to get pitches that allow you to have meetings and prepare your team accordingly for a National League game the following week. The volume of games, it's roughly about 7 matches in 8 weeks. So what you're trying to do is manage the load, manage the players, the travel, the organisation of all the travel, your logistics, your team, your coordinator is crucial in all of this as well. So, and then obviously the elephant in the room in this country in January is the weather. Because if I used to think of my 2 years as a manager, probably 4 to 5 out of the league rounds, out of 7, would have been played in horrible conditions where there's a gale blowing one direction or the other direction, or else it's been torrential rain. So the conditions is a big factor this time of the year that you just cannot take into it. You just can't prepare for what you're getting in Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw some of the pitches hang up pretty well actually last weekend. Porky Queeve being in case in point.
You won't get that every week and in every ground. I saw a report this morning in the Examiner saying that Munster Council are looking at building an air dome similar to what they had in Connacht, and they're looking at feasibility studies. I'd say forget about your feasibility studies, just go and build it because it's going to be needed.
Yeah, and Connacht have played FPD League in the Dome in the last few years as well, which is a great initiative. It worked perfectly actually. Like
the old saying, it would be a great country if you could roof it. Well, stick a roof on a few pitches, you know.
And the Dome is coming back in Connacht as well. It'll be back before too long. Plenty to look through, lads, in terms of the weekend's action in Division 1. Remarkably, Rory, all the fixtures in Division 1 this year catch the eye, maybe mostly in Ballyshannon, where Donegal and Kerry meet a repeat of the All-Ireland final from last year, contrasting winters for both of them, of course. Donegal, were you impressed with them last weekend?
Yeah, I was. And you're right, like 3 of the 4 fixtures are recent All-Ireland final pairings, which will give you an indication of the quality that's in Division 1. But I thought Donegal were impressive. I mean, obviously they were missing Michael Murphy and Oisín Gallen, and I'm sure we'll see the two of them later in the league as the league develops. But I think, look, they put up a good score, 120. I thought they were at their ease for most of it. They utilised the 2-point option quite well, which I think is an issue for Dublin. And I think the 2-pointer, I think, is a big game changer. And I think the teams that are going after it, and we'll get on to Mayo in a second, but we've also seen how they've managed to, identified the likes of Rob Henley to come in. And I saw Conor McKeown writing in The Independent this morning that he kicked more 2-pointers from Mayo in the first half last weekend than they kicked in their entire championship last season. So, look, I think, Donegal, I think athletically they'll always be in good shape. Just that's the nature of a Jim McGuinness team. They're going to be at home. They obviously have a rabid following, and with Kerry coming to town, I think, there's nothing better to whet the appetite for the locals to get out again in big numbers. If the pitch holds up, Ballybuffet, everything on the West Coast is going to have a massive asterisk, to go back to our old pal, the weather again. But I think I was also hugely impressed with Kerry. I mean, there was a lot of talk last weekend. David Clifford scored 1-9. Like, he goes out and he scores 1-9 and no one remarks on it anymore. It's extraordinary. Like, I mean, what he actually now needs to do for people to start to single him out for individual praise, it just gives you an indication of the sheer quality that he brings and just what a phenomenon of a player that he is. And I think like they have found something else in Tomás Kennedy. I know the Australians were sniffing around him. I'd imagine that would be a massive blow if they, I'm sure he's there for this year. And Kerry had a lot of their frontline staff out, and I think, I suppose if from their perspective, long journey up, they certainly won't want to make that journey on the basis of coming away with nothing. So I think it should make for a really good contest. And you would assume that given the way that Donegal started last year's All-Ireland final, given how it played out, how disappointing I think they felt in their own performance, that I think they'll come with something, big at the weekend.
Yeah, the forward unit for Kerry is something else, really, when you think about it, with David Clifford, as you say, playing last weekend. But lots of talk, Dessie, about Tomás Kennedy, obviously with that fetch for the goal and then for the point that won it at the end against Roscommon. That's going to add another element, surely, to their attack if Kennedy can sustain the sort of form that we've seen from him already. Well,
he has the mentor, of course, of Kieran Donaghy in helping him out as well. But I suppose if you were to think of you're making your debut for Kerry, you have David Clifford in the corner beside you, you have Sean O'Shea out the pitch. Like, all you want to do is hold your own. Instead, any ball that's going into the square, you're dominating the square, you're getting possession, you're getting a goal in your opening match, you supposed get the win and score. Like, that's his benchmark as a debut, like, the sky's the limit for this guy. And I think when Jack O'Connor is giving you compliments, because he doesn't give them out too easily, this guy is the real deal in quality. And if you would think later on in the summer, you possibly have David Clifford one side, you have Tomás Kennedy the other side, and then you have Paul Gainey slotting into the other corner there. Yeah. It's a fairly formidable forward line. But I suppose if you're Jack O'Connor, what it's giving you then, like, David Clifford obviously likes the ball. Like, he can win his own ball, let's be fair, he can win it anyway. But I suppose Tomás Kennedy is giving you an option where the ball can just lobbed into the full forward line and he's dominating that space. And it's a great option because there's no better ball than the early long ball into the forward line. And it's kind of remodeled now. You had Tommy Walsh and Kieran Donaghy, but it looks like it's a real formidable weapon that Kerry will have going forward. But I really enjoyed Jack O'Connor in terms of giving out about the rules. Like, he's spiky enough early in the season. And then Jim McGuinness then having a go at the media, I suppose, for questioning his authority.
There's loads of crankiness at the minute, Dessie, isn't there?
Did I again?
Everyone seems to be a bit cranky in this time of the year.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I suppose it just shows you the way, like, the likes of Jim McGuinness and Jack O'Connor protect the players, protect their environment, protect, everything that they're doing. They just don't want to be questioned by random media guys. There's very little tolerance for it when you're investing your life in it and someone questions you and you're like, you don't realise the effort, the detail that's going into every decision that's being made. And then I suppose after a match, you get questioned on it. And I know it's a journalist's job, but there is a genuine, very low threshold for getting questioned when the media are at you.
And even though it's only, we say only the league, but I mean, surely Donegal will want to lay down a marker this weekend as well, given what happened last summer.
Oh, big time. And their first match back in front of their own supporters. Oh, I would expect a massive performance from Donegal. I know people might pinpoint Dublin Mayo or Tyrone Derry. For me, it's the game of the weekend because it's so intriguing to see how both teams go about it. There is, I suppose, a tiny little bit of a false economy because we just simply don't know what the weather is going to be like. Obviously, you play with the wind and against the wind. Those types of things play a huge factor, which don't necessarily come into play as much as we develop into the championship. But I would say they are relishing this prospect inside that Donegal camp this week.
Yeah, and it's up in Ballyshannon as well, Father Tierney Park, where they've done it. Yeah, they've done a lot of work there, so it should be a great occasion on Sunday. You've already mentioned, Rory, Dublin Mayo in Castlebar. This has the hallmarks of another great match as well, particularly where both counties are at. Just from Ger Brennan's point of view, I mean, okay, they lost last weekend. They played well in the second half in particular, Dessie, but they don't want to be dragged into a relegation scrap here, and they could well be in that if they don't get something in Castlebar.
Yeah, I still think that like Dublin still have enough quality to stay in Division One. Obviously, like they're still getting players back. Like Bugler coming in there is a quality forward. Kennedy still has to come back into the squad. Like I think people forget that there is real quality in there, but obviously Ger Brennan has a job to find new players and unearth new players, which is difficult in an environment where, like, if you lose a game, everyone's kind of questioning you. Like there's a very it's not an easy job that Ger has, because if you think of the teams that we associate, or the quality that we associate with Dublin, like it's just not there anymore. They just don't have the volume of players that they have. So Ger Brennan has a job in his hands to get the next batch of players that can deliver in Croke Park week on week. Like imagine making your debut for Dublin and it's in Croke Park, that kind of thing. Like it's very difficult make hay or do well as a Dublin footballer, because you don't get too many chances. Like you have to perform when you get the opportunity. But on the other flip side of that, I was in Salt Hill for the Mayo Galway game on Sunday, and the energy is there, lads. It's there. It's early. It's January.
Yeah.
But I got a great sense of occasion. They really were performing well. Andy brought great energy on the line. Colin Boyle is with him there. But like I was there 12:15. The match was 1:45, and there was a queue to get into Salt Hill. Like so, it's back.
It's back. It's back. Just on Mayo, I know they were brilliant they were brilliant attacking wise last weekend. Defensively, I think Galway had 9 goal chances you could have made it throughout the course of the match. Don't forget Paddy Talley is part of the Mayo backroom team as well, and he was the man teams went to when they wanted to kind of sort out their defensive issues over the last number of years. Kerry utilised his services, Galway as well. Mayo probably need to shore things up there a little bit, do they, Rory?
Yeah, possibly, but I think the risk reward football. I mean, like if you look at Wales, look who won all the prizes over the course of the last 12 months, and it's the team obviously with the highest skill set, but also the team with the most adventure, and generally that's been Kerry teams. And I think the way the new rules have set the game up now, you know, risk averse football is not going to work, and I think that'll suit Mayo. Chaos suits Mayo. Let's get into, I think Lee Keegan described it, heavy metal. You know, it's just like moving the ball quickly from back to front, using the athleticism, you know, kicking it into guys that can come out and win it. They've obviously got a couple of younger players, the likes of Dara Byrne and Cian McHale, into that forward line that are good targets now for them. They have a goal threat, you know, which isn't something that you could always say about Mayo themselves. That 2-point option, I think, is massive, because having a 2-point option, like having someone like Robbie Henley back in goal, it kind of gives you that Beggan-esque type danger, insofar as any free now you commit from 50 metres in is going to be converted, which draws your defence out and also makes you much more
maybe a bit more standoffish.
Well, you're much less prone now to go charging into tackles if you know that they have that type of a weapon in goal. I think defensively, look, you probably will start to see. Will it completely revert to man? I don't think so. I think there will be a premium put on guys that can actually defend in a 1v1 situation. You will have to develop cover, but the zonal systems that we would have seen in the past and sitting very, very deep into low blocks and putting the numbers behind the ball, those days are gone. And I think the teams that have cottoned on to the fact that, you know, if you play fast, if you take chances, if you play with risk, you will get the rewards. Yeah. And I think Andy Moran has probably identified that.
Yeah. You were at the game, Dessie. Was it man on man more or less for Mayo last weekend?
Yeah, like I suppose what Rory's saying is so true. Attack is the best form of defence in the modern game at the minute. You just have to go at it. And to be fair, Mayo were, I think, 11 points up and maybe 15 minutes to go. Yeah. So Galway just threw off the shackles, and when they were attacking, they had no choice but to go for goals. And that's pretty much how it played out. But at the same time, Mayo, there was a big shift in the momentum in the game. So every attack that Galway had in the last 10 minutes, they knew they had to go for goals, and they were going for them. But Robbie Henley, again, he got his, I think, 7 points, but equally he made a few brilliant saves as well, and they're point-blank saves as well. So overall, it was an excellent performance. And you have to take note, Ryan O'Donoghue at centre forward was the real pivot player. he was really instrumental in. He was winning a lot of breaks, but his delivery of ball and his score taking was excellent as well. So he kind of controlled the game from that centre forward position, which is excellent. But yeah, the game is man on man, and the premium, the word Rory used is right. The premium on a defender who can actually look after his own corner forward. For example, like if you're David Clifford, can anyone in the country keep David Clifford quiet? I don't think they can. But like in my day as a corner forward, Anthony Lynch, and you know him, Rory.
Yep.
Like he was a defender that if you got 2 or 3 points off him any day of the week, you were actually happy enough with yourself. I think it's the likes of Sean Marty Lockhart, Mark O'Reilly. There's players defensively, Conor Gormley, Tyrone, that they were real. They could just nullify any forward. But if you think of the 10 previous years where it was packed defences and safety by numbers, I think the art of defending, the art of your 1v1 duel, it was just lost. There wasn't any of that situation. So defenders, I think anyway, defending has disimproved, and it needs to improve where players can actually take responsibility for their own man.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. There was one instance, actually, I think, in that Galway Mayo match last week when one of the defenders took a chance and was 4 or 5 yards out in front of Rob Finnerty, long ball in over the top, and Finnerty was presented with a goal chance. I think he actually blasted it over the bar in the end.
Yeah, I do. To be fair, you're right. He did blast.
What a pass,
though. It was a great goal opportunity. But I'm asking, I suppose I'm out of the game and I'm asking coaches that are involved, and what do you do? And they're like, the handbrake is up. There's nothing you can do. You just have to keep going. And that's the way the games are. And that's why, the club championship was amazing to watch. And equally, these matches, that game was 3-18 to 2-18. And everybody left that stadium absolutely delighted what they viewed. So in terms of a spectacle, you would have to say that the game is in a brilliant position at the minute.
Yeah, that was a really enjoyable match last weekend. The other game on Sunday is Roscommon and Monaghan, a really important one for other reasons, I suppose. Both teams losing in different ways last weekend. Monaghan will be disappointed with how they performed against Armagh, you'd have to expect.
Yeah, they need the Scottstown boys back fairly quickly, I would suggest. They might have to cut short their extended stay and get back in. Just, I suppose, you concede. It's very un-Monaghan to concede 127.
Yeah.
Now, it probably speaks volumes for the quality of performance that Armagh gave, but you would both of these teams would have been earmarked for potential relegation. They play each other in round 2, and you would have to say, when you put it into context that Tyrone were relegated last year with 7 points, I think whoever loses that one is down.
Okay, already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad, to go back to what we were saying on week 1, Carl, Monaghan went down 2 years ago, came straight back up. I don't necessarily think relegation from Division 1 is the death knell that it used to be.
Yeah, particularly maybe in a condensed season where you maybe have a little bit more breathing room.
Look at how competitive Division 2 is this year.
Yeah, and we'll get onto that a little bit later on. Dessie, Roscommon produced a performance even without the St. Bridget's players and a couple of other bodies as well down in Kerry. They'll obviously be massively disappointed not to have taken at least a point from it, but some of their players showing well. Dara Craig at full forward, but Dara Heenahan at wing forward, powerful runner as well.
Yeah, no, that was an excellent performance from Roscommon. To be fair, you're heading down to play the All-Ireland champions. You're down, if you think the St. Bridget's players would be, they'd be, your stacks would be very influential in the team. Conor Hand, but the midfielders as well, Eddie Nolan, they're all players that you would expect to be playing for Roscommon, and then you just don't have that option going down. So in terms of performance, Mark Dowd will be absolutely delighted because, let's be fair, they should have got something out of that game. But the one thing Roscommon just keep, and they do, Dara Craig has come in there, he's been absolutely excellent. That was 9 points he got. That was a standout performance of the weekend. And you have Jeremy Murta kicking the 2-pointers, and the Smith is back in there. So it was an excellent performance, but Rory's 100% right. The prize is massive, and I think this weekend, ultimately the loser of that game, there'll be too many difficult games coming in that division to kind of stay in it, and the prize is massive. When you think of Monaghan in Division 1, how they've held their own for so long, I do think Rory saying get the Scottstown back, I think the bat signal will be out for the boys, and I think they'll respond. That's the type of county they are, because they know Division 1 has been very good to them. They've played a lot of big matches over the years, and I think it's important for Monaghan to be up there.
Yeah, well, that'll be a big game at Hyde Park on Sunday afternoon. The RTÉ cameras heading for Armagh on Saturday evening, 5 o'clock, thrown at the Athletic Grounds. Another repeat All-Ireland final from recent years. Armagh against Galway. Rory, these teams have served up some crackers over the years. And given the forwards that were on display last week, this could be another one with a good pitch surface up there as well.
Yeah, usually an absolutely outstanding contest between two very good footballing teams. Funnily enough, possibly the worst contest between them was the All-Ireland final of 2 years ago. Look, and that can happen in All-Ireland finals when there's so much at stake. And teams were obviously playing the game under the old rules, etc. But I think, there was still loads for Park Choice to take from Salt Hill. I think, look, it is going to be a tricky enough one for them. They're going to the Athletic Grounds. There will be a huge Armagh crowd, like there always is, because they're another team with an absolutely massive support base. And I think, in many ways, the performance of the weekend last weekend from any individual team was Armagh to rack up. I mean, look, what that is just an absolutely outrageous score in Gaelic football, 127. So it'd be a really good test from Park Joyce's point of view, and they'll have it all to do, but you would assume that Armagh at home, given they'll be going into it with the bounce of the win on week one, will have a little bit too much for them.
Yeah, it should be a rip-roaring contest. Armagh 125 from play, I think, last weekend, 11 different scores or something like that, which by any stretch is a remarkable stat. From a Galway point of view, Dessie, you got a close look at them in Salt Hill. I know that they're without a good few bodies as well, but Pádraig Joyce spoke afterwards. He's quite happy, it seems, with some of the newer plays unearthed. Kieran Mulhern at centre forward, the McDonaghs in either corner, Fionn McDonagh and Ushie McDonagh. So there is a bit of depth there in Galway too.
No, there is, but PJ being happy when he's losing is not true. He'd be ticking off now when he loses a match. Now, to be fair to PJ, but like that, it's a very difficult one. They're going up to play Armagh. His good friend Geezer is there, Kieran McGeeney. That's going to be very tough away from home. But equally, then after that, I think they're playing Kerry in the next round, Galway. Now they're playing it without Conroy, without Cook, without McDade, without Maher, without Thompson, and then Johnny Heaney left the panel as well. So Galway full strength. Going up there would be a difficult match. Galway down that many players. And ultimately, Galway's weakness at the minute is they've no midfield. They've no platform in midfield. And if you look at the numbers, I would say that Mayo absolutely dominated the skies last weekend. They had Sean Kelly in there, and Sean Kelly is one of the best players in the country, but he just looked out of position. And that's the concern for Galway, is that I don't know if they have a player in the squad that's going to fill in and be able to provide the platform they need at midfield at Division 1 level. So it's difficult for Pádraig Joyce, but I'm sure he's well aware that the problem is that there's a lack of players at the minute, and when they get his players back in, that to be very, very competitive. And I'd say his eyes will be more looking towards Roscommon or Monaghan later on in the division to see can he get wins against them to stay in Division 1.
Yeah, and Peter Cook, I think he said, isn't going to be involved this year either after the game on Sunday. From an Armagh point of view, they're missing a few players as well, Rory, but they've built a great depth in their panel over the last few years. What's their overall goal for this league, do you feel, given how they exited the championship last year?
I think they'll go to win it. Look, I know that's probably flies in the face of any predictions I made last week, because I genuinely thought Dublin would start the league really well. But I think looking at with the way Armagh are now, there is a trend. There is a trend as well, I suppose, to a certain extent, with teams competing well in league football and translating that into championship form. We saw it last year with Kerry, even though you could argue who really wants to win the Division 1 football league. Kerry eventually did, and it didn't really do them any harm, and it tends to be something that Jack O'Connor puts a high premium on. Cork, in a hurling context, won the league, went to an All-Ireland final. So the two, there is a correlation between good league form and heading into a championship. And I think, look, it's another box that I'm sure in the Kieran McGeeney in terms of pedigree and things that he wouldn't mind ticking. I think actually winning a league title would give them a really good sense of momentum going into what is always a very, very difficult Ulster Championship.
Yeah, it certainly is. 5 o'clock start at the Athletic Grounds for that one on Saturday, and it's live on RTÉ television, as I mentioned. Let's go to the one that you mentioned in Division 2, Rory. Derry Tyrone on Saturday night. I don't think too many of us, Dessie, probably predicted that this would be, well, it was always going to be a big game, but as big a game as it might be now, given the both sides failed to win in the opening weekend.
Yeah, well, I suppose you would have expected Tyrone to win against Kildare, but like Kildare put in a solid performance. Like Brian McLaughlin getting the 2-pointer near the end, it was a big result for Kildare. And I suppose it's Tyrone trying to get that consistency piece. We know to have quality players throughout the team, but like it looked as if they could close out that game, but they just didn't do it. And I think that's been their failing the last year. Like, and that's a challenge for Malachy O'Rourke. Like your Dara Canavan was excellent up there. If you can get him enough ball, he's just such a silky player to watch. Like, but Matty Dolly there is still a full forward, like, is an important player as well. But if you think Derry, where they're at, their unpredictability, it's a very difficult challenge for them is to stop the rot and try win matches. And they're struggling to get it done at the minute. And the players that we looked at a couple of years ago that were humming, that were in Division 1 finals and playing extremely well and consistent, they just don't seem to gel as well as they have. And I just don't know what the mood is like up there. But when the mood turns sour, it just doesn't seem to do Derry players or Derry squads any good.
What's your take, Rory?
I think it's nearly the worst possible game for when you're scrambling around to try and get that win that can just breathe a little bit of confidence into you. Having Tyrone coming to town is probably the worst possible prospect, and a Tyrone team that might be smarting ever so slightly themselves from the fact that they were playing with a +1 advantage for, I don't know, was it 15-20 minutes against Kildare and still couldn't get the job done. So they have some issues of their own to sort out, and I'd say they'll go up there knowing, like, the chances are you're going to need 10 points to certainly get promotion. I think if Derry lose, then to get that 10 points, they have to go the rest of the campaign unbeaten. Can you see that happening? I mean,
in Division 2,
there's going to be slip-ups somewhere along the line, and it is going to put them under the cosh. But look, I think from a Derry perspective, as Dessie said, getting any win at all would probably be a good thing, just to sort of plant their feet again and just get that feeling back into the panel, because it's been so long, I suppose, since they've had any type of momentum at all. But I think from a Tyrone perspective, like I think they have such a plethora of options. They've had an absolutely outstanding underage system. They produce an exceptionally high quality of player. I think this league campaign might be the time for Malachy to sort of figure out a lot of that, and he will probably mix and match at times. Will it be enough to still get them promotion? I think it will, because I think the quality that they have is so high. I think you also have to bear in mind the numbers of teams competing in Sigerson Cup, from whether it's Queen's or Jordanstown, or, you know, like there's a lot of Ulster colleges competing in that, and a lot of Tyrone players competing in that as well. Obviously the quarterfinals are taking place on Wednesday. Now they'll start to drift back into the Tyrone panel and boost it. Losing Peter Hart over the winter, I thought, was a bit of a blow, because there's going to be a real change of the guard from a Tyrone perspective, in terms of, like, the team now is going to have to develop a new type of personality and new leaders. But I would have every faith I would see Tyrone still as, you know, at least number 2 in Ulster, and well capable of challenging for an All-Ireland, given the raw materials at their disposal. But it'll probably just take them a little while to figure it out. And there's no better place to do that than heading up to Derry at the weekend. And
maybe not a bad game from Derry from that point of view, to get themselves up for a match like that, with Tyrone arriving in town on Saturday. We know how competitive Division 2 is, lads, and you look around at some of the other teams. Louth had a good weekend last weekend when they got the better of Offaly. And Meath, the team that you picked out, Rory, to be fair to you, on our preview programme, as one of the teams that might get promoted from Division 2. And they've got Cavan this weekend, another local rivalry there. Sunday afternoon away to Cavan. That should be tasty.
Oh, big time. I mean, it's two counties with an unbelievable rivalry, even though they're in separate provinces.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating encounter now, given where the two teams are heading into it. But look at Meath. the big question was, could they build on last year? And I think what we saw last Saturday night, now I know it's only the first game in January in winter football.
Yeah.
It's very, very early to be making definitive calls. But I always got a sense with them that the new rules would release, there'd be a liberation for teams that can play football in a certain way. And I think they have really, really adapted to them, probably better than an awful lot of other counties. And then you add in that little bit of extra quality that they're starting to unearth. Jack Flynn, midfielder on Saturday night. I mean, they didn't really have him last year.
Yeah.
Look at the boost that's going to give
Great
them.
player.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, no, like if Meath go and win, and I think they will, again at the weekend, you know, they're going to be in prime and pole position, I think, to get out of that division.
And even though Meath had such a good year last year, getting to the All-Ireland semi-final, they didn't scratch the itch of winning a Leinster championship either. So that's something that they still want to try and target, Dessie. What's your sense of where they're at this year?
I'm very worried because when Meath are going well, it's not a good place for Westmeath, man. But like, I suppose I grew up watching like John McDermott, like the McEntees, like Graham Doherty played with him, Trevor Giles, and like they're such quality players. Like, and then they went missing for so long, and we really, really missed them in the GA. Like Leinster, it was a big miss that Meath had fallen by so much. But like, I have to say, if there's a team I want to watch at the minute, it's Meath. The energy around everything that they're doing is brilliant. The confidence that they're playing with, but like it's the unity of purpose. And I do think, and I'll give Robbie Brennan an awful lot of credit on this one. He's come into that job. It's a difficult one to come in after Colin O'Rourke. But like whatever, he's galvanised everything. He's brought all together. They're playing with a great confidence. Now, the only thing they're missing is silverware. But like with the way they're operating and the quality of forwards that they have, the midfielders are big, proper, physical men, and back to the old values of Meath football, and then tenacious and tight in defence. Like that's what you want as well. So like there's a lot to be excited about, and even for a Leinster man, because like Dublin have dominated Leinster for so long that it hasn't been enjoyable. So like you had Louth winning last year, you have Meath coming strong, Westmeath obviously thereabouts, and I think everybody looking at Dublin.
Kildare are big improvements.
Kildare come with Brian Flanagan, absolutely, Rory. And then the way Dublin looked to be plateauing off a little bit, and it just looks as if there could be a bit of a sea change in Leinster as well, which is kind of what the league is used for. Like Robbie Brennan will be trying to get as many players as he can in, see what's around the county, and then go on an assault at Leinster as well, because that's really now the next thing for Robbie Brennan.
And I agree with Dessie as well, Carl. I think they're great to watch because they play kind of risky football, you know, and they have that bit of panache and that bit of dash up front, you know, with the likes of Morris and like
Kinsella, Conlon, all these lads.
You know, like they're an exciting team to watch, and I think they'll push on. I think they'll have another good year.
Yep. Well, they've got Cavan this weekend. That's at 3:45 on Sunday afternoon. Just before we finish up, Dessie, Westmeath, you mentioned them there. They just about snuck past Sligo at the weekend. Would you be hopeful of promotion from Division 3?
Yeah, absolutely. Westmeath are playing very well. They've done an awful lot of training. Mark McHugh is in there, and he only knows one way, and that's the Jim McGuinness way. So they're working extremely hard. But like, I think possibly two of the finest players in the country, Ronan Wallace at wing back, is just absolutely incredible. If you've seen the O'Byrne Cup final, I think he won 7, which is an outstanding display. But equally, like Luke Loughlin's scoring records at the minute are absolutely off the charts.
That's a man that's well suited to the new rules, isn't he?
Yeah, so like, and to be fair, I had Luke 2 years ago, and I took him off in the league final. It just tells you the sea change that we've seen. Like he has opened up, he's expressed himself, he's playing with confidence. But yeah, like Westmeath will have a difficult match at the weekend. They're going down to Ennis, and Ennis is a formidable place because Ennis, if you can recall, were in Division 2 for I think 8 or 9 years consecutively under Colin Collins. They are formidable in Ennis, so that'll be a challenge for Westmeath. And I think as well, Sligo will feel a little disappointed they didn't get anything out of the game in Cusack Park last Sunday because Westmeath kind of stole it in the end. But that's what you need to do in the league. You'll take any win that you get to keep momentum.
Yeah, it's all about those 2 points, isn't it? Every weekend for all of the teams.
The 2 points, making sure that we get those 2 points over the line before the Hooter sounds.
Yeah, exactly.
It hasn't got away.
It's still in the ether after last weekend. Rory, what's your take on it?
Well, like, I suppose I'd have a question for Dessie on it, right? So the first question is, which I was trying to get clarified last night, is the new rules have been absolutely fantastic. absolutely, like, I couldn't be more positively enthused, and this, just an absolute game changer, and they've just, I suppose, revolutionised the game. But if I'm not mistaken, the only one that is not in club football of the entire suite of rules is the hooter. All of the rest have been co-opted at club level as well. Is that correct, Dessie? Is that your understanding?
No, I'd say that's correct. Yeah, because at intercounty it was just the clock, because manning the clock was done by a fourth official, which is obviously not feasible in club grounds around the country.
So, So the next question I would have is, was timekeeping such an issue that needed this type of drastic change? I didn't actually think. Was there?
There were occasions, I guess, when it came into view.
The odd time where the referee mightn't have added on a requisite amount of additional time, but I don't necessarily think you needed to go and spend 20 grand on hooter machines. I mean, they could end up becoming the GA's version of the e-voting machine, like that we all had. And, genuinely, I mean...
So what's the solution, do you think? Is it to go back to the initial system?
I personally, I just think you have a fourth official there. He can look after the time. But at intercounty level, so he's doing time on, time off. And at the end of the game, between himself and the ref, well, how much additional time? 5 minutes. The board goes up. Everybody can see it. It's 5 minutes minimum, which means he can play to 5:40, 5:50, and he blows the whistle at the end of the game, and that's it. It's still in hurling. I don't think it has detracted in any way from that. I don't like the aesthetics of it, the noise that it creates in the stadium. And I know people are saying that it creates this great climax, and I'm not sure it does. I'm not sure it actually does. Because I think you're because it's a countdown situation. Sometimes you're drawn towards it, and I would much prefer the suspense that's created by when is the referee going to blow the whistle. I think there's a far more climactic nature to that. Now they may argue that referees were playing God in certain situations and maybe playing for draws and all that type of rubbish. I don't agree that was the case. And I just think it's added a layer of complication that could potentially create a huge controversy down the line that I don't think the GA really needs.
Yeah. Dessie, what do you think?
It was hard to, Rory's making a very good argument, and I suppose, Rory, the counter to that is just the referees playing God is a concern.
Yeah.
And I think visually there was a couple of opportunities, even at the end of the first half last year, where Paddy Clifford was just holding the ball, waiting for David to make a move, waiting for him. Next time he gets the ball, kicks a 2-pointer, and then they all just walk in. But I do think it probably evolved from visually not being quite where the game was dragging into 3 and 4 minutes, where a team was just waiting for the opportunity to arise. But the counter argument now is what happened with the first weekend of the new system. It does appear as if it's very hard to implement, because the reason it was changed, Rory, is because remember Meath and Westmeath last year, the last minute, the hooter and that.
Yep.
So then the panic, there was a knee jerk then, and
then
there
was another panic and a knee jerk, and now
So I do think I think the system of the hooter, where it can't align to the club game, is a very valid point. I definitely feel that if I was to make a decision on it, I'd say it revert back to the previous year, last year's system.
Okay, well, let's see whether it'll crop up again at this weekend. But for now, lads, enjoy the weekend's action. Thanks a million. Now, time to talk hurling ahead of the weekend's action in the Allianz League. Rory's still with me here in studio, and we're joined now by Michael Duignan as well. Michael, how are you?
I'm great, lads. We're just commenting on the brightness coming in the window here. It's the Costa del Offaly here this morning. I don't know, all this talk about the bad weather, but we're flying it here.
As always, great stuff. Michael, good to have you with us today. And we'll start maybe with Offaly at the weekend as well, because you've got the All-Ireland champions coming to town, Michael.
Yeah, Cathal, absolutely brilliant, I have to say. I suppose Offaly hurling, as you know, we've had a rough spell there for maybe 15 or 20 years, and it's taken a few years to get back to the top level. So I'm absolutely thrilled that we've made it back to Division 1A. Obviously, very challenging matches ahead of us. over the coming weeks. And I was just thinking about this prior to coming on here this morning, that if you take, I think it was about 4 years ago, we were in Division One, but you might remember that time it was a kind of a tiered approach. Do you remember they were trying to take the pressure off the top teams by sort of balancing out weaker teams with the stronger teams, and we weren't ready that time. I think we had a few matches that we got well beaten in, and I suppose the ironic thing is this time around we have built a very young but a very exciting panel of players, I would say. Unfortunately, I think we're down 9 players at the minute through injuries. But aside from all that, and that's maybe a fact of, and it's for another day, we might talk about the split season. I think it demands an inter-county players, pre-season competitions, Fitzgibbons. We've talked about it all before, but that's for another day. But we're down quite a few, and other counties are as well. And Tip are down as well, even though they had a strong team out last Sunday. I was doing the commentary for RTÉ, the 10 of our Ireland team, but they're still nursing back Ronan Maher and John McGrath, Jason Ford, Owen Connolly. These guys weren't playing, who will all be certainly up the middle of their team. They're full back, centre back, full forward. None of them playing, but just from a general point of view, from an Offaly hurling point of view, and a supporters point of view, it's just brilliant to be back in Division 1A. We've Limerick coming to town in a few weeks' time as well. We've Galway coming up. We're going to Cork. We're going to Waterford. These are the fixtures that I think, when you finish up playing, you look back, they're the games you want to be playing, and we've been in Division 2, and we've been into Christy Ring, we've been into Joe McDonagh, so brilliant, and it's brilliant to have Tip coming. It's going to be a tough game for us, but I'm very excited about it.
What did you make of the performance last weekend? 4-point defeat to Kilkenny down in Nolan Park. Really competitive match, even without some of those players that you mentioned, Michael.
Yeah, there was a few lads missing, and then Donald Shirley, the centre back, only lasted about 15 minutes, and he had played Fitzgibbon on Thursday night. But a lot of lads are playing Fitzgibbon at the moment, like Tip had lads as well, and every other county has, or Kilkenny had it, as well. But they were good. They battled very hard. I think the thing they took out of it, I think, talking the younger players especially, was just the pace of the game. There's a huge step up from underage hurling. A lot of these lads wouldn't have played for senior hurling for Offaly before. I think there was 11 lads that played under 20, either in 23 or 24. So I think, the time on the ball, the way Kilkenny played, their work rate is so high. There was 2 and 3 lads closing lads down at times. I think it'll be a huge learning experience for a lot of the players, and they were very competitive. Kilkenny had, obviously we're missing a few very experienced players. Hugh Lawler, Billy Ryan, not available for the moment. Paddy Deegan and Richard Reid came in. TJ's not there at the moment. But anyone that's playing for Kilkenny and puts on that jersey for Kilkenny is a good player. So really competitive. Got back to a point with maybe 7 or 8 minutes to go, and you're sort of dreaming. But Kilkenny maybe always looked like winning. They're that bit physically stronger, as they say. But very, very competitive, and it was a very good game for different, I suppose, than the night before, which was more free-flowing in Tip and Galway, even though it was very physical as well. This game seemed to space never really opened up, and I suppose that's encouraging for Offaly. And we didn't ship any goals down to Liam Horden. The under 20 goalie has stepped up, and that's a sign of the competition. Mark Troy has been absolutely brilliant. Jim's son in goals for Offaly for the last number of years, and he was away on a family holiday there for a few weeks down to Australia to visit a sister of his, and Liam Horden got in there, and he's there now, and Mark can't get the number 1 jersey back at the moment, and he's a top-class goalkeeper on the national stage, and I suppose that's something we were lacking in Offaly for the last few years, is competition for places. And I think when everyone is back, we're going to have that. And look, it might take another while, but I think we have to be patient. But no, very, very positive signs last week from a lot of the new lads in particular.
Yeah, that was Offaly. Just on Tipperary, I guess both these counties have players coming through, don't they? And Liam Cathal spoke about as much after the game against Galway last weekend, Rory, that the production line looks to be quite strong down there, even though they had, as Michael says, 10 of the All-Ireland winning team, but it was still a useful performance against Galway. What are you expecting from them this weekend?
I'd say it'll be much of the same, and I think Donal Hug described it as the land of milk and honey at the minute in Tipperary, and I think it's probably a fair enough summation. They're like winning under 20 titles, being extremely competitive in Harty Cup, which they are and have been. I wouldn't say dominating that competition, but between Nina and Thurles, Templemore, they've been absolutely at the forefront and are favourites to win it again. I think on Saturday. And so there's a constant conveyor belt is probably, the phrase thrown out there. But there is that constant flow of quality player that's coming into the Tipperary ranks. Obviously, they did an outstanding under-20 victory last year. They've been in under-20 finals, played in a couple of incredible games against Offaly, actually, in under-20 and at minor level over the last number of years.
Yeah.
And they will continue to produce players, and Liam Cathal won't be afraid to throw them in. The age profile for both of these counties, I think, is quite young, and I think it should make for an exciting game on, a pitch that is always in absolutely top class condition, in my view, one of the best grounds in the country, and because we know what way the weather is like, and winter hurling is not fun. But I think, look, if you can get a dry day at all, I think it'll make for a very, very good contest. I think there was loads for Offaly to take, even in the defeat to Kilkenny, because one of the things that you have to try and avoid, especially when you make that jump up into Division 1A, is to just, even if it is the case that you go back down, but at least if you're going back down having been competitive. And we can see that now with Offaly, because you do have to bear in mind they are young. They're a young team. It will take time for them to sort of establish themselves and find their feet at senior intercounty level. And a lot of the players fill out, kind of understand senior men's intercounty hurling, which is, it's a tough environment. But I think, look, they're on the right track. And if they come with the kind of same level of performance that we saw in Nolan Park last weekend, I think they'll be competitive again. Now, Tipperary is a completely different challenge. We know, look, they're the All-Ireland champions, and I think they, as I said, they have a huge depth, and he will probably throw a few more new faces in there this weekend. Won't weaken them in any way, shape or fashion. But good game to look forward to now.
Yeah, it is. Is that the big difference, Michael, the physicality piece from, say, Offaly's rise up the divisions? Is that the thing that they need to adjust to most, do you think, in 1A?
Well, I think it's just that particular group. Like if you take the Tip young players, Oisin O'Donoghue, Darren McCarthy, Sam O'Farrell, all these guys, they're all fully grown men. And we have a few of them. We've said the Dan Ravenans, Donald Shirley's. These guys are big, strong guys as well. But we have a lot of smaller, lighter players. It's just the profile of the lads, and you just can't rush it. Like Adam McScreeney, Breckin Kavanagh, these guys are superb hurlers, but they're very light, but they are working hard, but it's just the profiles. Every player is different, as we know. Some lads come along at 19, 20 and they're fully developed, and some lads aren't. So I think that is a piece, all right. But and I just on the Tip team, I think Liam Cathal has been extremely clever over the winter. The way, this time last year, no one was talking about Tip doing anything, right? And now they've won the All-Ireland. The first thing he did was he brought another 7 or 8 lads under 20s into the panel to put the pressure on. He started a very young forward line lads, like Jake Morris and Andrew Ormond aren't old by any standards, but the other 4 lads were all under 20 last year, and it's very clever. He's putting huge pressure on the established players. He's saying these lads are coming, these lads are ready. I'm not afraid to put them in there, and that's how he can create that competition for places. And because he's that sort of manager, he has to be. He has players at his disposal. He has to be ruthless. He has to use them. We saw the great Brian Cody. Like, nobody was safe and you have to create that environment where there's huge competition for places. And like, it's early days in the year. We're going to talk about the other matches, but like, already Munster is shaping up to be an absolute another dogfight, as we'd expect. Yeah. But I just thought Tip putting out a very strong team, Clare putting out a very strong team, Cork putting out a very strong team. You'll see Limerick coming at the weekend. They're going to do the same. It's like nobody wants to show any sign of weakness.
Yeah.
And it's only January. So imagine what it's going to be like in April and May.
Oh yeah, God, it's early days yet. But the other game on Sunday is Limerick's entrance, Rory, into the National League this year. They play Waterford away from home. Waterford will surely have the bit between the teeth now at home on the back of the performance last weekend as well, to try and get a positive result.
Much like, I suppose, we spoke about Monaghan, maybe looking to try and get the Scottstown guys back in as quickly as they possibly could. I'd say it's a similar situation in Waterford, where they will need all hands to the pump. It was an anemic display in a lot of ways. The game was kind of over after 10 minutes, and it was a bit disappointing, I suppose. Like, non-contact hurling, if you play non-contact hurling with Cork, that usually is what will happen. And you would assume, I actually think Waterford will have a good year.
What's your take? What's your reason for that?
I'm going to throw it out there, right?
Yeah.
I think Waterford could be one of the three to get out of Munster this year.
Okay.
I think they haven't managed it yet. But I think when they have everybody, they will be a match for anybody. They're not going to have everybody this weekend. They're facing a team that I think we all are very excited to see and very interested to see. Like last year's championship finished in such a disappointing fashion from a Limerick perspective, and they've probably been waiting for this to come around for a long, long time now, because their intercounty season finished so early.
Yeah.
Last year was in the
June?
middle of June.
Yeah.
So they've had such a long layoff, and we saw even in that Munster League how much quality and how many of the household names that John Kiley was putting in there. Obviously, they've got Caroline Curd back on board. She seems to obviously have a little bit of magic dust that she tends to sprinkle. And yeah, there's been a few retirements, and there's been a few lads switch out from the panel. But it's Limerick, you know? I mean, this was a juggernaut. Obviously hit a few stumbling blocks in the last 2 years. I think going and trying to win another All-Ireland, obviously that's going to be uppermost in his mind. But I think you will definitely see a better performance from Waterford this weekend. They're at home. I think that's going to be that will be one of those places that will be hard to go and get something from, whether it's league or championship. I think they will make that a fortress, if you want. And I think it'll be a very, very competitive contest. Well, very competitive, much more than what we saw from Waterford on Sunday just gone.
Yeah, okay. Michael, I remember yourself and myself, we were down in the Gaelic grounds in Limerick when that Limerick-Dublin match was playing out in Croke Park last year, and I think exactly what the people were saying there, Rory, was it's Limerick, they'll get it done, they'll find a way back against Dublin. We were all crowded around the televisions down there, and they actually didn't get it done. What are you expecting from them this year, and what sort of maybe different approach might they take, if any?
I think the first thing we're going to see is a very different Limerick team. I think what John Kiley, like all great teams, it's very hard to change a team as you go. You know, like when you started looking at, I think Liam Sheedy had the same issue with Tip when he came back the second time. Brian Cody, as I mentioned, he wasn't afraid to drop an odd lad out. But like when you have such a strong group of players, such a strong starting 15, and you know them, and there's one or two lads coming in, and you have such trust in them, you've developed such a relationship with them, to start leaving some of those lads off the team is very, very difficult. And I was saying that for the last 2 or 3 years that maybe Limerick needed to be freshening up the team. And I think if you look at the Limerick panel now, there'll be a lot of players on it, you mightn't know them. I think there's upwards of 20 new players in the Limerick panel over the last 2 years that are only beginning to come through now onto the starting team. And I think you're going to see a very new look Limerick team with maybe quite a few changes in the starting 15. And you're also going, you have a couple of retirements and injuries, obviously. Well, you have Declan Hannon, really. I don't know a lot if anyone else retired, but Seamus Flanagan has been dropped off the panel. You have a few injuries, but I think we're going to see a number of changes to the starting 15, and I think we're also maybe going to see a change in their style of hurling, because I think it's been maybe become a little bit predictable in terms of the way they play, and leaving two inside, a lot of short passing out the field, and teams started to really go after that. And having said that, if you look at the matches like the Dublin match, I think maybe they took it a little bit for granted now, and we'll talk about Dublin later on, who are I think are improving and are going to keep improving. But I think they might have taken a bit for granted on the day. And if you take against Cork last year, in the Munster final, really they had the chances to win that as well. So Rory is right. I was talking to John Kiley only recently. They're very disappointed with the way last year panned out, and they're going to be very determined. And just on Rory's point about Waterford, I think I've been saying that for a number of years, Rory, and I wasn't going to say it this year because I've been backing them year after year because of the talent that they have when they have everybody. But I just don't know now. I think they're missing so many guys. They're going to come back in. I don't think they'll be back in for this week. Like, to be fair to the Ballygunner lads, like, they're going to have to get a few weeks. I hope they leave them off after the Waterford or the Offaly game, which is the weekend after. So Peter, give them another few weeks until March. But like, when they have everyone, they have a lot of good players. I agree with you. You saw last year they ran Cork very very close. They beat Clare down in Walsh Park. They're a serious side with everybody, and one win is what they need to really to build that confidence. I wouldn't read too much into last week, and I think what happened genuinely is I don't think they were expecting that. Cork just came out. Like I was in Nolan Park and walked back to the car and turned on the radio, and I think there was 7 minutes gone, and Cork had 8 points scored or 9 points scored. Like it was just, they just blew them out of the water. And I think for any team, like Cork showed Ben O'Connor, Rory, you know Ben O'Connor, I know Ben O'Connor all my hurling senior life. I said 3 or 4 years ago he was the man for the job, and I think everyone else can look. This man is very ruthless and determined man, and he generally succeeds in everything he does. He was one of the most underrated hurlers. I know he was rated, but I don't think he was rated as highly as he should have been as a player. And he has a backbone and his steel, and I think we're going to see. I think he's going to. Last year, after the All-Ireland final, walking out of Croke Park, I was worried about Cork. I said, where are they going to go from here? How do we recover from that? I think they have recovered. I think that's all gone. And I think Ben O'Connor is going to drive them on. So, again, throw it into the Munster mix. Well,
let's see. It brings us nicely on then, Rory, to Galway Cork on Saturday night.
Much different test. They'll get a much more different test this time round, and rightly so. And I think it'll be one that Ben will relish. To go back to what Michael was speaking about, Ben. Like Ben he's a tough character now, and I think he will look forward to this, because we saw very encouraging signs from Galway on Saturday night in Thurles. I mean, physically, they were right up for it. There was just a different attitude in the way that they played.
Bite to it, wasn't there?
Yeah, and like it was something that we probably haven't seen from a Galway team for a while. And I think we'll see more of that on Saturday night. And I think Ben will welcome that, because I wouldn't be surprised if he throws in 1 or 2 more of the potentials. We'll say, your probables and your possibles. So from a management perspective, I wouldn't be surprised if Ben says, right, look, nice firm sod, dry day, beautiful pitch, Parky Queeve, ping pong hurling. Yeah, that's one test. But Salt Hill, in the middle of winter, probably in the middle of a hurricane, on a heavy pitch, cold, wet, damp, that's when you find out. That's when you find out, what certain individuals will be made of. And I think Ben will like that. And he will, if he's got any type of discrepancy or uncertainty over any individuals, team sheet will be very interesting. And this will be the place that he'll find out about it, because this will be much more hand-to-hand. This will be winter hurling at its peak, and a great place to go up and test yourself, long way to travel, all those types of things. I think that's something that he will relish on an individual basis, but I think the team should as well.
On the team sheet for Cork, Michael, Declan Dalton at full forward the last day, impressive. Is that the place for him, do you think?
I don't know. I think Declan Dalton is an extremely talented player, brilliant striker of the ball. You saw that penalty, like he nearly put it out through the net, and he has had so many good games for Cork. And then, but I think when he's good, and which he normally is, he's very good. But when he's bad, like in the All-Ireland final last year, he's very bad. And I don't know whether that's a mental issue or what it is. So that remains to be seen. I think he's a very, very good player. He's very physical. He's very strong, and he's a very good striker. You'd have to say you'd want him on your team. But as I say, he only lasted. Full
forward suit him better than the wing, Michael. Do you think?
Maybe so, because I think his tendency on the wing, he drops back very deep, and he's a very good striker. So he's shooting from a long way out, and he's capable of putting those over the bar. But they're fine when they're going over. Then they don't go over. Then you're maybe out of the game. So it might just keep him more involved in the action, and that physicality, that he has would be very suited to there. So, and Cork are very settled. Another factor that might come into play, and maybe not this week, but over the next few weeks, is these young players that are coming through, like Galway. Jason Rabbit and Evan Island played in the colleges on Ireland final last year, and now they're playing senior for Galway. Rory Burke is very young. Just and the same with, I think, the younger players maybe in counties that haven't been hardened. Matches week after week, will take their toll. I'd say a lot of lads it's going to take them all this week to get over last weekend because the pitches are slow. As Rory said, Cork was in pristine condition. You're dead right about Salt Hill. Like, there is no harder place to go this time of the year. Like, it's going to be like, and it's no fault of the pitch. I'm not blaming the groundsman down there or anything like that. It's just where it is. It's practically in the Atlantic. You're what next step? The Aran Islands, like, and it is a hard place to go. We never. I only played there a couple of times when I was playing. We used to tend to go to Ballyshannon that time. That's kind of gone now, and Galway have really embraced that, haven't they, Rory? The matches under lights and even their club championship last year. Like, look at their gates last year in Galway GA. 1.4 million or something like that. We did about 500,000 and off. Yeah. I know we're a much smaller county, but they're really tapping into these evening games under lights, bringing the crowd into Galway. Hard place to get in and out of. I'm sure a lot of people would have loved if that place was built, somewhere outside. It is a very difficult place to go. But anyway, they're all different points. But they will bring something different. But you'd imagine that Galway are building. And Michael Duignan, was a bit like, I just think we have such a crop of managers at the minute, haven't we? Like, look at what Michael Duignan did for Galway. He left, wherever he left, he felt he wasn't getting the support to make some changes he wanted to make. I think that's the backdrop. I'm not fully sure. He went to Dublin. He did a good job in Dublin. I'm not sure his heart was ever in it. Himself and Noel Larkin and these guys going up and down the road, long trek. But he came back in last year, and very similar to when he took over the Galway job first time round. He did very little. He kept the panel as it was. He was very loyal to the players. He understood. That's his personality. Another manager come in and tried to make wholesale changes. He was loyal to everybody. And a few of them now have just retired. Like the great David Burke. A few other players have just drifted away nice and slow, quietly. And you will see him now building his own team. I think that 47 lads, someone said, Trent, see Tip carrying the panel of 43. Like, this thing is getting bigger and bigger to be resourced. If you have the ability to do it, great. But you have a lot of lads that aren't going to see action, but you're improving them within that high class environment all the time. And it's going to make it, I just see Michael Duignan building a team now in his likeness. And it mightn't happen for them this week. I think Cork will be maybe a bit ahead of them this week. But over the next weeks and months, I'd expect Galway to come out with a very new look team, and it might take them a couple of years and people will have to be patient, but I think they're going to get better. They have a lot of good young players, and the Loughrea lads and all them come back as well. Yep,
they'll take a lot from their first night out anyway against Tipperary, no doubt about that. Let's turn our attention then, lads, to Division 1B. We've already discussed on our preview show, Rory, the Kildare hurlers in Division 1B, and they've got a trip to Parnell Park on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think it's like, for me, there was a couple of big stories. Obviously, look, Tipperary will maybe argue the toss on this, but in many ways, the story of 2020, there were two massive stories. Two massive stories in 2025 for me were the Waterford minors winning a minor All-Ireland. I think that's a huge boost from a Waterford perspective. When we spoke about Waterford earlier, and they are producing players underage, so they mightn't have the depth at senior level now, but that depth will come. And then the other massive one was Kildare to win the Joe McDonagh, and what a validation for the amount of work that has gone on in that county. And it's still probably largely pockets. It's probably most of the work is being done by maybe expats from Tipperary, Kilkenny and all of that, but that's just the nature of how hurling spreads. And look, you've got a couple of big clubs in there. Naas, obviously, you're, driving on, but like, they're a huge club in a massive town. So they have plenty in terms of the population that can deliver this. Now, like, when they went into that prelim quarter-final, which, I don't know. Hard to read
too much into that.
I don't know if they're going to survive. Actually, Michael might know about that because he's on Central Council. But whether the prelim quarterfinals are going to survive, and if there's a motion, I think, of Congress to maybe disband them. Yeah, I think it probably put a small blot on the copybook for what was an absolutely outstanding year. But they're up there now, and they're going to get games against Dublin. They're going to get games against Clare, Wexford. This will, and look, it'll be a challenge. It will be a challenge in this league. But as we mentioned 2 weeks ago, there's like two leagues in this. There's Dublin, Wexford and Clare in one league, and then you have Kildare, Carlow, Antrim and Down basically playing in a separate league to see who goes down. But this is a good opportunity for them too at the same time, like going in against Dublin and Parnell Park. like surely that's what they would have. That would have been part of their ambition process when they would have began as intercounty hurlers. So I think it's a fixture worth keeping an eye on. The problem for them, though, I suppose this weekend is a tough start. I agree with Michael. I think Dublin are going to be improved again in 2026. Had an opportunity actually to watch them train over in Abbottstown. There, we were playing a challenge match ourselves, and I was like, the one noticeable thing about Dublin. I'm 6'2", and the one noticeable thing about them is the sheer size of them.
Yeah.
They are a big athletic team, and they add a bit of hurling into that. And obviously, they have a very good manager in place now, in Neil O'Callaghan. So that's a tough start for Kildare, but also a good measure of where they probably need to get to if they want to sustain and survive in Division 1B.
Yeah, Michael, what do you think about Dublin Kildare Saturday night?
Look, I think Dublin will win the match, but just to pick up on some of the things Rory said there, one of my big bugbears, and I have lots of them, but is the whole dual county thing. You know that we're a small county, relatively small county. We're not using it. Never use it as an excuse. 80 or 90,000 people, but hurling and football are 50-50 in Offaly, and always have been, and hopefully always will be. And
that is not the case in a lot of counties, Michael.
It's not the case, and it's lip service to one or the other.
100%.
But there are, look, obviously the bigger counties, the Corks, the Dublins, the Galways, brilliant, and lots of. So if you take around here, Laois, Westmeath, Carlow, smaller counties that have always tried to play both and have really made huge efforts to keep them 50-50. I think we should be looked after better.
We should be rewarded for that.
Financial point of view for that. But take Kildare, which has become a huge county because of, as you mentioned, Naas, and you have your Minutes and Selbridges and Leixlips, huge population in those places. A lot of people moving in from all around the country. And really was that appetite there. They were hurling away, but over the last number of years, they've really grasped the nettle, and to see them, they were in Division 1A now, and they're in Division 2 in the football. We're actually playing Kildare next Saturday evening in Newbridge in the football, and to see their hurlers up there now as well. I think Kildare, as a county board, and as the hurling people in the county, I think they deserve huge credit for driving it on. And it's going to be. You mentioned that. No, I think those preliminaries are going to be gone. Well, it depends what Central Council vote. I can't preempt the vote, but I have been either side of that argument with Offaly. I felt I couldn't speak too strongly on it when I was chairman of Offaly, because I didn't want to sound like we were arrogant, that they shouldn't be played. We hadn't won the Joe McDonagh. We hadn't even been in a final for some of those years. So I wasn't best placed, I felt, but we lost it one year and to Carlow. And we had to play Tip the following week, and that was the score 7-38 against us the following Saturday. The following year, we won the Joe McDonagh. There was a better spirit. The lads were obviously celebrating. Cork came to town to beat as well. We played very well, actually, for a long time.
I was there, actually.
But that's not the point. That's not the point, though. I don't know any other sport in the world where you enter one competition and end up in another. And, if you win the Joe McDonagh, go away. It's brilliant for that year. And don't dampen it by... I was in Newbridge last year when Dublin played Kildare, because we played Kildare in the Tailteann Cup after it, and they tried hard. The lads have been out, they've been celebrating, and rightly so. It did put and it was a horrible evening as well, and excuse the pun, but it did put a bit of a damp squib under a year. The
other thing with it, Michael, is if it wasn't feeding into the Liam McCarthy, you could stretch it out a little bit more, and much like what is done with the Tailteann Cup, in that you could potentially then look at having the final before an All-Ireland semi-final, or, that you have the opportunity to give it a proper, a better, stage, and a better pedigree, and a better platform for exposure, and a better finish for the year for the players and obviously the team, and a better boost for hurling.
Yeah, and I think where the county boards that were in it and are still in it are looking at it was that it's a great chance for them to play a top team and all this. But you have that next year. If you win the Joe McDonagh, if you lose it, lads, the players don't need to be getting these hammers, and the stats are there, the average beatings are there, and all that. And I agree with you, Rory. It does allow it, because it is very condensed as well. Like, it's absolutely crazy. schedule to get it finished so early. So that's a huge point. But also the point I was going to make was that was a great chance for the Kildare team to come up, be introduced to the crowd as All-Ireland champions. It was Joe McDonough, but there was a huge crowd there for the football match. A lot of young people there. It was a great chance to promote these lads in that spirit. But anyway, they move on from that. They're going to be very competitive in Division 1B. And look, the way the Leinster Championship is at the moment, Wexford are obviously rebuilding. Kilkenny are obviously a few of their top players, coming to the end of their career, and Galway rebuilding as well, albeit with a lot of good young players. So, Kildare are going to be in the mix come the summer. They're physical as well and mobile, and we play them actually in the last game of the Leinster Championship next year in Newbridge. So, I hope it doesn't come down to that, to who stays up in Leinster next year. So I lived in Naas in my playing days, so I know the scene fairly well up there. I moved back down when I was finished playing.
Yeah.
But so I'd have so look, and Rory, on your point, like Kildare at home in some of these league matches, like Wexford found it very hard to shake off Antrim last week. Or did they shake them off, or did what happened? Or that was a crazy game in horrendous weather conditions. So I wouldn't, if Kildare could get a result somewhere, I'm not saying they'll get out of Division 1B, but they might surprise a team or two along the way.
Yeah, that one on Saturday night, Dublin Kildare, Down Wexford this weekend, big weekend for Down as well, bringing Wexford, and a home fixture for Down on Sunday afternoon. And just before we finish, as a quick word, Antrim Clare on Sunday afternoon. Rory, Michael, you mentioned there the devastating circumstances really in which Antrim lost that game, and Wexford the long trip back home then after that, having conceded that late goal to Mark Fanning. And Clare, the visitors this weekend, that one should be interesting.
Very interesting, the Davy Derby, and look, it's I think it's heading for Cushendall now, but I think Michael was mentioning that's not much of a difference really between there or Dunloy. That's kind of all up in the glens anyway. Listen, I think it's on the BBC iPlayer as well, so it'll be available for people to watch if they can get access to it. We won't go there about geo-blocking and etc. But no, look at you would hope that they would take some level of sustenance from the performance in Wexford Park. And, I think a couple of years ago, Clare went up there. I know that game might have been played in Corrigan Park.
I think they lost up there, didn't they?
I think Antrim beat them up there. So it's not, look, it's not beyond the realms of possibilities this time of the year. Go back to Michael's earlier point, a lot of the teams, particularly the established teams, tend to be playing very strong lineups.
They are, and Clare went very strong last week.
Clare were going very strong in the Munster League as well.
Yeah.
They had an awful lot of big names. So, that's definitely a fixture to keep an eye on.
Quick word on that one, Michael.
Yeah, I thought Clare last year they were one of my big fancies, and then they lost so many players with injuries. They had a horrendous year. They are raring to go, lads, this year. You saw a great game with Dublin last week, and they had all their big guns with Tony Kelly in such great form. Long time since we saw Tony starting the league like that. But they still have Shane O'Donnell and other lads to come back. I think could be a tough day for Antrim lads. They've lost a lot of players for different reasons. They've stepped away from the panel. Not sure. There was a lot of controversy with Davy last year, whether he should stay or go. A lot of criticism from big names up there like Sambo in Cushendall with the pub and B&B in Cushendall. And maybe that's why they brought it there. I don't know. Give him a bit of business.
Sambo will have the Sambos ready.
Yeah. Sambo will be ready. And I just think Clare are not in the mood. Lohan doesn't look to be in the mood. Well, maybe he never is in the mood for any messing around. But they look driven. I don't know how. Look, they'll make changes from the team. They're going to give lads game time. But Antrim were heroic in Wexford. Wexford. The conditions were terrible. I think Wexford are down. They're not down. Wexford have to start. It's for another day's podcast. But I think Wexford have to really look at rebuilding their team. The reliance on Lee Chin last year was huge. He wasn't playing. Obviously, he's not playing at the minute. The minute he comes back, he'll give them a huge boost. But Rory O'Connor will come back as well. Jack O'Connor. So they will make huge differences when they come back, and a few of the other Martins lads. But Wexford really need to look to build a new team. I think down there. That's for another day. But I think it could be a long afternoon for Clare or for Antrim. It's a long trip for Clare. They'll make a weekend of it, and but I expect Clare to win that one comfortably.
And just, I know we're probably wrapping up there soon, Carl. Just one final point, just to flag to people, the Late Show are doing a GAA special on Friday night, so it's a sort of a full 2-hour GAA special, so it'd be something interesting for people to watch. And I think they have all of the All-Ireland club champions in studio, so it should be interesting nonetheless for anyone that wants to sit in on a Friday evening, given the way the weather is. That might be good viewing.
They're not having it down in Paul Gainey's. No.
Yeah, they can send Marty
The boys
down
come
there,
in, and the boys still there since last weekend. No.
We'll have to bring the podcast down there at some point as well. And you've got Armagh Galway as well on television on RTÉ2 on Saturday evening as well. But lads, enjoy the weekend's action. We'll be back again next Monday. But for now, thanks a million.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow?